Welcome to the Perfect Place to Put a Practice podcast. I'm your host, Mike Green with Dr. Demographics. Today, my guest is Kevin St.Clergy. If you don't know Kevin, he is an absolute legend in the practice ownership, practice coaching. He's a marketing genius. Great resume behind Kevin. He's going to talk about his new book and some of the great things that he's learned along the way. So enjoy this interview with Kevin St.Clergy. All right, Kevin, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us over here at Dr. Demographics on the Perfect Place to Put a Practice podcast. And Kevin, I want to have you just take a minute. You've had a very interesting journey. As a matter of fact, before we hit record on the podcast, you were just telling me about the book and some successes you were having. Matter of fact, I see the book right there over your shoulder. Blind Blaming. I'm sure we'll get beyond blind blaming. Boy, I'm not very good at the alliteration. I'm sure we'll get to that a little bit later. But tell me, kind of bring me back. Like I say, you've had a really interesting career path. So kind of bring us up to speed.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Well, believe it or not, I'm an audiologist.
Yeah.
By training. My aunt was an audiologist. My cousin was an audiologist. And I was sitting on my couch in Austin, Texas. And I was like, I really want to, I talked to my mom and I was like, I really want to teach, but I don't want to make 30 grand a year. Yeah. She's like, why don't you call Aunt Gigi and see, about audiology? Her and Mark seemed to be doing really well with it. And Mark was in private practice and she was working for some ear, nose, and throat surgeons. So I called Aunt Gigi and she's like, listen, it's a very fulfilling career. You're going to love it. I think you should give it a shot. Move to Beaumont, Texas, of all places. That's where she went to grad school. So she's like, look, you'll be trained by the same guys who trained us. They're still there, but give it a shot. See if you can get into grad school and go over there and finish your undergrad. So I called Mark and honest to God, he said, it's all girls. I hope I don't sound like a sexist. He's like, it's all girls, man. You'll love it. And he was kind of joking, but not. Yeah. And then he's like, listen, I really think you'd enjoy it. I love it. I've had nothing but great things to happen to me in my career. And you could there's so many things you can do. You can go to work for the manufacturers. You can go into private practice. You can work in corporate audiology. There's just a slew of things you can do. I really think you'll find it very fulfilling. And I did. Yeah. Took a few classes, fell in love with it. When I got out of school, I had a bad experience though. This guy tried to hire me, another student, and 3 professors to change his business model in private practice. And about 2 weeks after taking that job in Dallas, Texas, my professor met me at the door with a beer in hand and said, listen, you're going to need this. And I'm like, oh, crap, did I do something wrong? He goes, nope, you didn't do anything wrong. This guy's just a psycho and he's crazy and we're all leaving and you need to leave too. I think you need to take that corporate job, audiology job. Yeah. And I was nervous about it because I really wanted to be in more of a private practice setting like Aunt Gigi and Mark had, but I didn't want to work for my family. I wanted to make it on my own.
Yeah.
It ended up being the best decision I made because when I got up there, they put us through a business of audiology course. It was basically 20 very successful private practice owners coming through saying, look, here's the mistakes we've made in the industry. Here's what you can do right out of the gate to not make those same mistakes. And all 13 students came out. We weren't students anymore, but we were all fresh out of school. We came out and all got our own clinics and we outperformed people who've been doing it 20 years. I took my first clinic from about $5,000 to $10,000 a month to $600,000 a year within 12 months. And then I had 4 clinics within 18 months that I developed and grown through different partnerships with different doctors and surgeons in the area. And it was hugely successful. And they gave me kind of a career path. They're like, look, you can continue to grow practices for us on the corporate side, but we're opening up a consulting side where as long as people buy their medical devices through us, which I think they call them something differently in dental, MSOs or stuff like that. It was basically free. Look, buy the hearing aids from us and you'll get a discount and then we'll provide the consulting services at no cost to you. And it was fascinating because I got out there and I found out that a lot of doctors weren't using the best practices that I was taught in that corporate environment. So as much as people hate corporate medical, they do have some really good systems and processes that I think can make private practice owners better. And I just got really good at sharing those. And I was very young at the time. I was like 26, 27 years old. And my favorite referral was from a client. I said, listen, I need to tell you what Ken told me when he referred you to me. He goes, Ken called me and said, hey, listen, I'm going to send this little kid into your business and just listen to what he has to say because he knows his stuff and he really can help you grow. And I've worked with some of these people 17, 18, sometimes 25 years since I started that because I started that consulting gig back in 1999. So we took that territory from $500,000 in wholesale medical device sales to 5.5 million in 4 years. And then I think I made too much money because they promoted me, and I was director of clinical development for the US. And then around 2004, 5, and 6, the internet started to become more popular. Yeah. And it was already popular in other industries, but I kept hearing this over and over again. Look, why are you starting a digital marketing company in audiology? We all know that old people will never use the internet.
Right.
I don't know. I think they're using it right now. You're just in denial or just don't know. And so we started a digital marketing agency in audiology and grew it to 400 clients with 900 locations. And we changed our focus from just being a digital marketing agency to a practice development, a practice growth agency. Our job was to help people grow their practices. So I developed an assessment where we go in and analyze how they're doing in all areas of their business, not just on the marketing side. And then it would put together, that assessment would help us put together a plan on other ways they could grow their business. And typically we got to the point where we could grow a practice 50 to 100% in the first 12 to 24 months, as long as we had an owner who was willing to take our advice. And that's the key, the asterisk there, if you want.
Yeah.
So after that, we got pretty big and we had some pretty great profits and we were doing things really well. Great clients. Our attrition rate was 1.5% or less. When we had we were all month-to-month contracts, which when I sold, even the day before we sold the company, they're like, we need your contracts. I'm like, we don't have contracts. And the attorney's like, there's no way that you have a 1.5% attrition rate with no contracts. I'm like, that's because you're not used to actually delivering value.
Right. Yeah.
And making sure that you're helping people and deliver on your promise.
Yeah.
Yeah. We sold that in September of 2022 for a life-changing exit. Yeah. And then I came home after getting my one stupid purchase, my Lambo.
I saw that. Yeah.
I got the Urus. Yeah, I got the Urus. And still have it. I love it. In fact, I went on a long drive yesterday. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did the Urus because now I can take people wine tasting and everything else.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Been fun. But when I got home, I had a small group of people over and one of my friends asked me, what's next? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, what's next? You're only 50 years old. What are you going to do now? And it bugged me. I was like, well, hell, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
And so I came into my office on my little virtual whiteboard and wrote down what is next. And I saw a TED Talk book on the bookshelf. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just try to further my speaking career because I've spoken all over the world, several different countries for different medical device manufacturers and had a lot of success doing that. And they seem to be always well received. So I ended up joining a mastermind group with someone who was actually on TED.com. And she was wonderful, taught me a lot, that not only upped my speaking game and pushed me to new levels, but she hooked me up with some people who kind of help you write a TED Talk. And so went through this really fun exercise where we went through all the life lessons I've had at that time with the 50 years I'd been on the planet. And we settled on this story of when I was 10 years old and I was a phenomenal baseball player. In fact, I had a 550 batting average. And those of you who are listening who don't know much about baseball, that's actually really good. In fact, it's great. Even Babe Ruth in his heyday had a 394. Yeah. And so my dad went to work. And I went to work. I was going to play for the Rangers and the Texas Longhorns. I was ready to get ready to play middle school and high school ball. So my dad and I went to work on my mindset. We hired a special swing coach that used to actually play for the Dodgers. We had all these connections because my dad owned an oil company at the time. So we were doing pretty well. Yeah. And even built a ballpark down below with permission of the neighborhood. Dad brought in like 80 things of dirt, and we made we made our own baseball park to practice, and we let the whole neighborhood use it. It was great. Yeah. Yeah. But then when I stepped to bat at the 11-year-old league, something was different because I started swinging and missing. In fact, I missed every single pitch for the entire season. I literally went from hero to zero. And for those of you who don't know anything about baseball, zero is really bad. I didn't get one hit. You can probably guess what I heard from the stands too. I mean, come on, kid, keep your head in the game. Yeah. Play to win this time. And then my dad would give me lectures all the way home about all the things I did wrong. And then he started accusing me of having a crappy attitude, and still to this day, he'll tell the story like, Kevin, when he was 10 years old, he was the best GD ball player I've ever seen. And then his attitude went to crap. And I'm like, Dad, I just showed you my book and what the real problem was. They're like, oh, right, that. So that next season, I did play one more year, and I only played 2 games the entire season. I sat on the bench because at that time I was starting to blame myself and think maybe this isn't the game for me. And 2 weeks after I quit baseball for good, we found out what the real problem was. I went to the eye doctor, and he said, hey, sorry, kid's practically blind without glasses. And the real problem was this, and that whole 2.5-year, 3-year stint, the adults in my life never stopped blaming me for something that was completely out of my control. Yeah. And when we were going through this exercise with the writers, I was like, God, guys, what about blind blaming? Because that's what was happening. Kind of plays with the baseball story. And they loved it. And I loved it. We trademarked it. Blindblaming.com was available. So it was just going to be a TED Talk, and I was going to work on my professional speaker career. So at the time, I had a podcast called Audiology Mastery, which really applies to anyone because we didn't really have any audiology guests. But I had people like John Gray, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul,
of course,
some big TV stars and other very successful authors. And every time I'd share that TED Talk with them, they'd say, look, this would make a great book. This would make a great book. And even Jack Canfield was like, I think this would make a great book. And I wrote the book, and he was the second person that read it. One person even went so far as to say, look, I think you have a duty to write this book. I think this could impact millions of lives.
Yeah.
And we did. And then fast forward 3 years to today, and we hit #1 bestseller in entrepreneurship.
So congratulations on that.
I worked really hard on it, and I actually did write it. I used AI for idea generation, but I wrote the book.
Yeah.
I had a really good editor, and it all came together. And we've been testing the framework now for over 3.5 years now. And it's changing lives and businesses. And it doesn't matter what industry or profession that you're in, it's working everywhere as long as I have an owner that will apply the principles that we teach. Yeah. So anyway, that's the short story long.
No, I love it. And I love that story in the first part of your book. You've written very, very well, by the way, and laid out exactly. And I think probably most of us that have read the book thought back of something in our childhood, especially. And I think because we're such a vulnerable, we listen to the adults, right? And what they have to say. And I think we could relate to something in our life that was similar to that. And I think about the doctors that are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, and probably they're having the same problem in their practice, meaning that they're solving the wrong problem perfectly, essentially, right? And the thing is I just like you playing baseball, like you knew the fundamentals, and I'm not a baseball player, but you hold your elbow in a certain way, and you hold your feet in a certain place, and your head and your eyes and all those things, and you can perfect those things, but that may not actually be what's the problem in your office. And so often I'll be talking to clinicians who are whether they're a dentist or an audiologist or whatever, and by the point that I'm talking to them, like I have an emotional connection to this person, like they're my friend, and I see them going through this process in that they're a wonderful clinician, like they're skilled at what they do, but they're having problems in their office, and they think, well, if I'm just a better clinician, that's going to solve the issues that I'm having. When so often it's not that at all. They have some other problem that's happening in their office that they're either too afraid to solve or too blind to even see that is the problem. And one example I can think of, a doctor just last week I was talking to, and wonderful person. I mean, just a salt of the earth. Just like I would take my whole family there, like just a great doctor. But his front desk person was a nightmare, just a nightmare. And so he had all these terrible reviews online. And I'm thinking, man, there is something happening here, because I know this doctor. I've worked with him for years at this point, helped him place his practice in a great location. I know the demographics are really good. The marketing looks okay. Why does this doctor have such bad reviews? So start looking through the reviews, and front desk person told me this, or this was rude here. And it's like, no, that's the problem. That's your problem in your office. And you've got to solve that problem before, because it's not going to be solved through clinical skill or holding your elbow a certain way or your feet a certain way. And anyway, that was what I thought of.
A certain way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we run into it all the time. And I do know my dentist, especially because we become a small world. I went to get my teeth cleaned, a new dentist, and it turns out he went to school with my stepbrother.
Oh, really?
He's like, wait, you're Dickerson's brother? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, we're in the same fraternity and things like that. And I pledged for a little bit on that one. Fraternity was not for me. But I knew him from years ago. So we were always talking business and everything else. And he was sharing with me a problem that he had. He's like, listen, I know you own a digital marketing agency. I'd love for you to look at some stuff for me, because I'm about to switch digital marketing agencies because my business is down.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, you haven't read my book yet. And I gave it to him. I was like, sure, read the book and let me know. And he's like, man, your story really hit home because I was really about to change digital marketing agency. Come to find out, they did generate 22 leads for me last month, but we only answered 50% of the calls that came in. And the ones that we did answer, we weren't following the script that I wrote.
Yeah. Right.
And I was blaming the wrong thing. And so once we got the phone answered, guess what? Business picked up again. And I found out why. And it wasn't anybody's fault. Nobody was trying to do a bad job. But I think so many times what I always say is, look, blind blaming has 3 fatal flaws. The first is that it feels right. There's these cognitive biases that we all suffer from that help us make decisions quickly. They give us structure. They can also be very bad. Yeah. And they can lead us down a wrong path. And that first one is called availability bias. That means when we have a problem, the first cause that we think of that pops into our mind, that's it. Just like, well, my business is down, clearly a marketing problem. Yeah. And with the marketing agent owner, I used to get those all the time. Kevin, is our website still up? No, we took your money and tore it down for no reason. Of course it's still up. You just had a bad month. Let's go dig deeper. And typically what I tell people is like, look, when you have a bad month, go through the entire patient pathway, their journey through your office. Marketing's job is to make the phone ring. Then it's your job to convert that call to an appointment. That appointment into revenue generation, that appointment and happy patient into a review, and hopefully a referral. Yeah. And there's a very strategic approach you need to take at each level. Yeah. So a lot of times it's not a marketing problem, it's a front desk problem. And then a lot of times when you have a doctor that's underperforming, it's not a patient problem or a marketing problem, it's a procedural problem. They're either not following a specific sales approach, which I know we hate to hear as doctors, but I've seen dentists who are really good at talking and asking good questions to get a patient to that level where they're willing to give them $5,000 to $10,000 cash that's not covered by insurance, things like that. We just went through it with my girlfriend who needed the Invisalign, and I love the process they took about. Like, oh man, I love your process. You're asking questions. It's so good. You're so much better than the other doctor that she hated that just did not have a process in place, because this is what I do. So it was really interesting to see Jennifer's experience from one dentist to another on a very high-end private pay sale. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I would say the majority of our listeners and our clients, they're typically a private practice owner. They have maybe 1 to 5 different locations. And we certainly do have a lot of corporate clients as well. And in the dental world, it's a DSO, right? Like that's the kind of
DSO. That's what I was looking for.
But,
DSO. Right?
And I would say that we do a lot to support the private practice, and I firmly believe that a private practice will always be a thing. They will not get completely overwhelmed by the DSOs and the private equity companies and those kind of things. Yeah. But that being said, one thing that I do like about DSOs and a corporate model, and it doesn't matter if it's dentistry or optometry or audiology or whatever, is you have a built-in system to see the forest through the trees. I think part of the problem when you have a private practice owner is they're just on an island. And a lot of times they won't talk to other doctors because they're their quote unquote competition. They don't have any kind of a coach or mentor or someone that will tell them the truth about what's really happening in their office. So Kevin, I wonder if you would take a minute and reflecting back on your journey, both as an audiologist, seeing the corporate model, and now helping and mentoring and coaching those at this time of your career. What would you say is the role or the importance of having a really good coach or a really good mentor or a band of brothers, for the lack of other word, that around you that will tell you the truth, right? Not just your mom that tells you you're always cute and you're always beautiful and your marketing looks fantastic, but someone that will truly tell you the truth about what's going on in your practice.
Yeah. Let me back up just a little bit, because for the OCD listeners who are like, hey, you said there's 3 fatal flaws and you only gave me 1. Okay. Yeah. Let me finish that, because I know somebody's listening and laughing and that. But so when I said because it's going to lead to what you just discussed. Okay. Because then I'm going to talk. The first thing that we always teach people, and the book is structured this way, is to be aware that blind blaming exists. It's real, and there's 3 fatal flaws from it. So the first one is that availability bias. Whatever you think is going on, it's the first thing that you think of. It's usually wrong, by the way. Yeah. And the second fatal flaw is something called confirmation bias. So once you think you know what the problem is, and you become a treasure hunter for data that's going to back up that initial thought or that initial root cause. And again, you start ignoring other data that could prove you otherwise because you're not looking for it. And then 3, when you're so busy blind blaming, it blocks you from finding real solutions. So that's being aware. Now we move into some of the, being around, not being the smartest guy in the room is what I hear you describing, which we'll get to. But to break free from blind blaming and move beyond it, which is what the whole title of the book is, there's a 3-step process that we teach. RCD method, we call it. Reflect, connect, and decide. So I know listeners aren't part of corporate America, but in corporate America and manufacturing, as I've gotten in more outside of the medical field, doing a lot of consulting the last 3 years, because this really applies to everyone. I've learned things like RCA, which is root cause analysis thinking. When there's a problem going on, a lot of times they get their team together and they start asking these why questions. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? What caused that? And the problem is when you do that kind of thing in your sphere of influence, you guys are all stuck in the same blame loop, pointing fingers at the wrong thing. So the first part of that RCD method, reflect, you're just asking yourself one key question. Is there something else going on that we can't see? Because when I talked about that fatal flaw of that availability bias, that one thing you think that's going on, and confirmation bias, where you start looking for data to back it up, it actually becomes physiologically impossible for you to see another root cause. And it was proven in this book called The Structure of Scientific Revolution, which I didn't know at the time. It was one of the most quoted books in history. This guy studied researchers, and when they were doing research of a particular problem, and the results of that research matched their beliefs of what was going to happen, everything was fine. But when they started getting results that didn't really match what they thought would happen, it was almost like the data didn't exist. And that's no different from a dentist that practices not, or has a practice that isn't growing or scaling the way they want it to, and they think it's one problem, but it's usually something else. And not only can they not see it, but their team can't see it either. Even when they say, is there something else going on that we can't see? And they try to think of what else it could be. The next step is critical, C. And this is what's missing from that RCA process, that root cause analysis, is connect is where you connect with a professional coach or what I call a mastermind group. I didn't come up with the term. It's been out there for years. Some people know what they are. Most people don't. But I like professional paid coaches because I had a coach years ago that I presented him with a problem. And he actually said, you know what? I don't know. Let me go ask my coach. And I'm like, wait a minute, you have a coach? And he goes, of course I have a coach. There's always a new devil at every level that you get to. And I was like, ooh, that's a good one. I'll steal that. Excuse me, ethically swipe and redeploy that. But then he said, Kevin, how many Olympic athletes do you know? It's perfect timing because the Olympics is going on. How many Olympic gold medal champions do you know that didn't have a coach and weren't part of a team? And I was like, you're right. And he goes, can't think of one. He's like, it's because they don't exist. If they are, it's rare. And I don't know of any stories personally, but his point was, when you look at what I'm recommending, that C is connect. You're connecting with a professional coach that you pay for, because I truly believe you need to be invested in a coach you're going to be working with, and people who pay attention. And also paid mastermind groups. And for those of you listening who don't know what a mastermind group is, this is where people pay money to be in a room with other dentists or similar professionals, or sometimes just people with similar goals, so that you can all brainstorm and help support each other, and you share ideas and you do things. And we actually own mastermind groups ourselves. But it's where you get into a room, and it's really powerful when you get into a room with people and you start doing things like we do this one thing called give and ask. And that's where everybody stands up in the room and they give their best idea that they've ever done to help them grow their practice. Because we've got a couple medical field masterminds, and we've even got one in real estate. We're about to start one for professional coaches. So we're really getting good at this whole process. But it's so fascinating to see people get up there and they give their best idea, and then they ask the group for help. And a mastermind is when you get a bunch of masters together and it becomes one mind and you're helping each other. That becomes powerful. So you might have what you think is the problem, but your coach or your mastermind is going to be able to see things from a different angle, a different viewpoint. And they'll probably say, no, I don't think so. Just like recently in a mastermind group, we had a private practice owner who got up on stage, and she was struggling. She was stuck at that $1 million mark or right below it. She couldn't seem to break free. She had one bad hire for provider after another. And she's like, I just don't know what it is. And she went through her give and ask, and then she told the group a little bit more. And it was really interesting to see another doctor who's at that $3.5 million mark. She's doing really well. She's like, you know what? You're where I was 2-3 years ago. Your biggest problem isn't the fact that you're getting bad providers. People do want to work today, and providers do want to produce, and they want high patient satisfaction. You just haven't given yourself permission to grow yet. And she stopped and she dropped her arms, and her whole kind of demeanor changed. And you could tell that she just nailed her on stage. And she's like, what? And she's like, listen, you're not paying your providers what they're worth. Get in there, pay somebody $130,000 to $150,000 a year, give them a reason to be with you financially, but then also create a great work environment and watch what happens. Because there's nobody in this room, there's 40 people in the room, by the way, nobody in this room that's paid somebody what they're worth and got a good high caliber provider in their office that didn't grow. Yeah. You just keep getting crappy providers because you're hiring people that you think you can afford because you're scared to death they won't produce. And when you don't pay them the money they're worth, guess what? They're not going to produce. And it was awesome. So after you've come up with a problem you think you can't see, share it with a coach or a mastermind who can help you see the real problem, the last stage is decide. And I won't cuss on your show, but we come up with a term called MFD.
Yeah.
And this came from a provider that I was working with and a practice owner. And we were working on a double in her practice. She was going to acquire another office on the other side of town. It was brilliant. But she kind of had two loans two companies were going to give her loans and thinking about what she wanted to do. And she's like, well, what do you think I should do? I mean, they just keep coming back with better offers. Maybe I should wait it out. I'm like, no, Kayla, I think you need to make an effing decision.
Yeah.
I didn't say effing, by the way.
Right.
And the word I'm looking for is fervent, if you guys are wondering.
Right. A fervent decision.
Fervent decision. So you can use whatever F word you want.
Right.
But I got back on the phone with her a month later and she's like, okay. And she left. She comes back. And I was like, well, what's going well? Because that's how I start all conversations off now, because some people feel like the world's a dumpster fire. And she said, oh, Kevin, I'm MFDing all over the place. I mean, you've completely changed my life. I'm making decisions. Yeah, we made some mistakes, but we pivoted and done what you taught me, and we're doing really well. I'm like, Kayla, what are you talking about? MFD? She's like, yeah, make an effing decision. I'm doing it. And I'm doing it every day. And things are moving forward. Yeah, we already bought the practice. Everything's good there. And we're going to double our revenue, maybe even triple it this year. And I was like, that's awesome. Do you mind if I use that in my book?
Yeah.
And so she gave me permission. So reflect. Is there something else going on that I can't see? Connect with a professional coach or mastermind that can see things from a different angle and give you some advice and tell you what's really going on. And then once you have the information you need, you got to make an effing decision and move forward.
Yeah.
People get stuck in analysis paralysis. So be aware of blind blaming, RCD. And from what I'm finding, it's going to change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Kevin, both you and I have a fair amount of gray in our beards. And for those of you listening, I'm describing what our beards look like. And I've worked with thousands upon thousands of doctors over the last 30 plus years. I know you've had a similar experience. And I cannot think of one unicorn doctor that I've ever known that's in that top 10%, top 5% of producers that does not have that system that you just talked about. I just don't think they exist. I really don't. I've never met that doctor that is not getting advice, is not part of a mastermind, is not part of a group that is willing to tell him the truth or her the truth about really what's going to take them to that next level. And that's the great thing about this industry is there's always another level. There's always another level to go. And there's always people, usually, if you look in the right places, that are willing to help you get to that level if you make the right investment, if you take the right amount of time, and if you don't get in your own way. And that seems to be a huge issue. So now our listeners in the last couple of weeks, I've been talking about Apex Platinum Partners quite a bit. And so will you just take just a minute? And then I've got kind of a bonus question I didn't tell you I was going to ask you.
That's all right.
But I want you to cover at the end. But tell me the role that Apex Platinum Partners, where do they fit in with that equation?
Yeah, so Apex Platinum Partners, we started Platinum Partner Group about 5 years ago. Started in audiology and hearing aids and grew it to about 40 members, 50 almost. Now with another level for larger practices, but it's just a chance for you to do exactly what we described. Get in the room with practices who are at a different level than you, or maybe they're at the same level, but they're just more efficient, more profitable. In that program, there's 3 things that we work on, and we'll do the same thing in Apex as well. We call it M3 mastery: mindset, margins, and momentum. We've always felt like if we could build the business owner that builds the business, we'll succeed. And we've done it. If we help doctors like dentists raise their belief lid and see what's actually possible, and just sitting with another doctor recently, she said, before I joined Platinum Partners, I just thought I'd have $1 million a year practice and be just fine. And, work every day, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday, because we stopped working on Fridays, and be just fine. I never in a million years imagined that I would be working 2 or 3 days a week with 4 locations, making $1 million a year myself.
Yeah.
It was a huge compliment. It really made my day. And the way I got involved with the group was a couple of years ago, I was asked to be a speaker. And I did a talk on personal assistance because the guy that hired me was like, I never can get through to you. You have like 3 levels of assistance. I know you barely do anything, but what you like to do and have fun. And I was like, you're right. So I came up there and his partner was leaving at the time. He's like, hey, why don't you hang out for a couple of days and tell me what you think? And after sitting there in that mastermind group for 2 days, I said, yeah, I want to be part of this somehow, some way. And we worked out a partnership, and now I'm very involved in helping people like yourself set up masterminds. It's one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever had a chance to do in my life.
Yeah.
It is actually something that I've had my calling. We just had 78 people in Turks and Caicos.
Yeah.
And then I think your group is going to do our first meeting in Napa.
Yeah.
So even if you don't drink wine, I would highly recommend you come because it's going to be a blast. I'm actually planning a Napa trip, so it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I think if you're looking to not be the smartest person in the room, if you're looking to take your business to the next level, Apex is the program for you.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not overselling it, but I just truly believe in it, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Because I've seen what an impact it has on doctors' lives. How you do anything is how you do everything is one of my favorite sayings and quotes. And what's really amazing is to move from a digital marketing agency where everything was real transactional, like, what have you done for me today, to move into this platinum partner group and the masterminds that we have in several different industries and just have people give you hugs, even though they're investing a little bit more than they ever have to get their business to the next level. But it's not me or you, it's the other doctors in the room that you can learn from. And we learn just as much from our members as they do from us. And the speakers that we bring in have usually nothing to do with the field that you're in, because you guys have all heard those same speakers before. Mm-hmm. And that's something else we've done to make the group different. We're bringing in speakers that you've never heard of to work on your mindset, to help you have better margins so that you can create that momentum in your business and grow your business and work less with more time, and creating what we call strategic freedom. Yeah. That means you can do whatever you want. If you still want to see patients, and see patients, but don't have to worry about income anymore. It's kind of nice to get people to that level. Yeah. So
I love
that's what we do. And a long story short again, or excuse me, short story long again. But if you couldn't tell, I'm pretty passionate about it and I love it. Yeah. Hope I don't sound too cheesy, but no. Love it. And the people that we have working with us and the speakers that we come in all have the same feeling. The speakers we had in Turks and Caicos, which is an amazing place, by the way, if you've never been, until you get stuck there for 2 days. Damn the bad luck. I couldn't get home. It was just a real bummer, having to hang out at the beach for another couple of days. It was a little frustrating getting home, but that's what I would say. It's a transformational business model that changes lives. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I know you're a baseball player, so I'm going to throw you a curveball. Not really a curveball. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I know you did a talk. You were invited to be a keynote for an adult ADHD conference, and my Instagram feed, my LinkedIn is all about adult ADHD, and it's kind of seems to be the topic for the hour, right? Of so many business owners and realizing that some of the things that are holding you back are maybe ADHD related, especially for some of us Gen Xers that just power through, right? And so just give me your Reader's Digest version, your 2 to 3 minute adult ADHD. What did you teach the people over there at that talk?
Well, we talked blind blaming to that too. There's another story. If I got a couple more minutes, I think we're okay on time. Yeah. But the reason I got invited is the woman loved my book, and she puts on this ADHD conference every year. And it was pretty funny when there was any distraction. It was pretty hard to get the audience back on the same track. So everybody laughed at me before, and I got some pretty good jokes before I went out there. The group was really cool. Some of the speakers there had ADHD, but when I had hit that $1 million mark in my last business, I was starting to struggle. Look good on paper, but I was starting to struggle. My clients were starting to leave because I was so disorganized, and my business partner was convinced I had ADHD. And so he hired me an ADHD coach. My team members were starting to leave because they were so frustrated with my ability to follow up and get things done. I was starting to doubt my ability to be a business owner. And Charlie was really hard on me. And he hired me this ADHD coach. And after about 6 months, the coach is like, listen, you don't have ADHD. I don't know what's going on, but I think something else is going on. And this goes back to that core blind blaming. Yeah. That first question that we talked about before. So she sent me back to my primary care doctor. And she's like, so you suffered from this your whole life? And I was like, no. And I wish somebody would stop saying that, because it's just not true. So she put me through some tests, and we come to find out I had sleep apnea.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was just chronically exhausted. And once we got that fixed, I started wearing my mask, which was Always fun when you're single and dating to wear one of those masks. That's all I've got to say about that. But it changed my life, and we grew the business 5 times once I got that fixed.
Interesting. Very
another
interesting.
kind of path down the line when I started getting fuzzy as I got older, more things go wrong. Every new level, new devil. Every new year, sometimes there's something else that goes wrong, and I had another issue with low testosterone. So
okay.
I had some blind blaming medical stuff. And that's why in the book, in that first stage, reflect, we have these 5 areas that we go through, and health is one of them. And we've had a couple of doctors who read the book and went and got their testosterone tested who thought they had ADHD or something else. And I'm not taking away from people that actually do have it. I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting. Like this woman named Karen, who's a good friend of mine, she's like, look, I just want you to know your book's changed my life because I never would have thought about getting my hormones tested. I'm 47, always chronically pissed off. And even my team's like, who are you now? You're like super positive. You've got all this energy. You're working out again.
Right.
And it wasn't anything that she thought it was because she thought she had crippling ADHD as well. I was about to get on medicine for that. So that was my talk at the ADHD conference. But what I learned was that a lot of people do have to power through it. Some people take medicine, some people don't. But the things that I found are the people that are doing really well, that really truly do have ADHD, have developed some systems and some processes to work around it. Even something as simple as one of my favorites was, because this is a bad habit and I don't really have ADHD, was just coming home and not unpacking my suitcase after a trip.
Yeah.
And so this one coach that was there, an ADHD coach, said, listen, when you get home from this trip this week, go take your suitcase, put it right by the washer, and just put your clothes from your suitcase into the washer immediately as you get home. And I was like, wow. Okay. So I did that. So there was all these little hacks that came out of it. There was a lot of AI stuff. A lot of the ADHD coaches were interesting, but I just won't forget because I led them. They asked me to lead the mastermind group on Saturday. So we had about 15 of their larger businesses. These were people doing $5 to $15 million a year.
Right.
And we were right in the middle of a big exercise and a car backfired outside, and then everybody hopped up and went to the window, and I'll be damned, I could not get them back. You could not get them table. Back. It just went on to do the things. And then that night we had a speaker dinner to wrap things up, and half the speakers had ADHD as well. So they were going around the room talking about our big takeaways, and we were at the end of the table and somebody was like, they're never going to get to you. Like, I know. But it was fun. But I think the biggest thing was, and I had some people were like, I think owning my own business or practice is what created my ADHD. And I think it seems like that. So the big takeaway I had from that conference is what I teach is just focus on one thing at a time. Yeah. And ask yourself this other question was, what's the best next step? Yeah. Because I think when we have ADHD, we get so overwhelmed with what we could be doing, should be doing, whatever. We got 15 different things on our ever-growing to-do list. What's the one thing that you need to do next? What's the best next step? And I would also recommend that anyone with ADHD that's listening, you got to come up with your one major goal. And when you're deciding that MFD strategy, which by the way has become a thing, it's on mugs, it's on shoes.
Shoes, I saw the shoes.
Yeah, it's pretty wild what people are doing. That seems to be their big takeaway. But I'm finding that MFD, they're making the effing decisions sometimes on the wrong decisions, and they're tying up their day. So when you have one major goal, and then you ask yourself, is what I'm working on right now going to help me move towards that number one goal? If not, it's either a hell yes or a hell no. Yeah. Very simple.
Love that.
And I think if you have ADHD, you pick that one goal, and then everything you're trying to do needs to be geared towards that. If what I'm working on right now doesn't help me get to that number one goal, it's a pretty easy hell no. Yeah. But if it's something that does help me move the needle towards that number one goal, hell yes. Yeah. What I found is that really went over well with that audience. Yeah. So if that helps anybody listening, I think we all have ADHD tendencies. We're in a business owner because we have so many things we have to do. But that's one strategy that's helped me and helped others.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Kevin, you're a gentleman. You're a brilliant person. You've got great experience. Anyone that's listening out there, how do they connect with you? Where do they go?
They can go to blindblaming.com.
Okay.
They can buy the book. I would start with the book. We're about to give away the first chapter for free, but you can also get it at Amazon. I would start with the book, but blindblaming.com is the best way for you to connect with me. And there's a contact form on there, and my number's all over the website too. So if you need some help, give me a call. Otherwise, hopefully I'll see them at your new program that you're launching soon at Apex. And we'll be on those calls every month, and hopefully in Napa as well.
I was going to say, we'll all get together in Napa. That'll be great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much,
having me, man. Great show.
Appreciate you. Yep.